Malcolm Fraser's opening speech off, the Liberal campaign in disarray, and the Prime Minister's colleagues pay a visit to the sickbed. Good evening, Peter Hitchener for News Centre 9.
It was almost the campaign that never was. In the media monitoring room at Liberal headquarters in Melbourne, the news was received with undisguised gloom. Gough Whitlam had been on the campaign trail for 2 weeks. Now the Libs would have to wait another 2 days before their leader was well enough to deliver his policy speech.
And able to address the nation.
Earlier that day, newsmen gathered outside the Fraser townhouse in South Yarra. The jackals of the press, Mrs. Fraser called them, tired and upset after seeing her husband through a feverish night. Phil Lynch was there, telling everyone who cared to listen that there'd been no setback and that things would go ahead as planned in 2 days' time.
Maybe it's this one. What's this? Another one, is it? Or?
Keep that up tight. So, hello, it's the media filming the mediaing, I think.
I'll say.
Do
you have to do that now?
Well, I'm
Doug Anthony was there too, and he didn't like being asked whether Malcolm Fraser was prone to bouts of flu like this one.
Good health, or is this a recurring problem with him?
Oh, I think he's been in very good health. Can you recall when he's had the flu before? I can't.
It seems a very important moment to get the flu. Is there a possibility that this sort of thing could recur?
Well, you know, what are you trying to impute? You're trying to say he's not strong?
No, there's no imputations at all.
Well, it is. I mean,
it's a question of concern.
Well, it's just stupid for going on like this. The poor man gets the flu, he's put into bed, and now you're trying to read all sorts of things into it.
No, far from it.
Well, that's the way I interpret it.
Good morning, Liberal Party headquarters. Yes, one moment, please.
7 floors above Queen's Road, St Kilda, is the Liberal Party's national campaign headquarters. $70 a square foot is the going rental around this part of the world. Not that the Libs pay that much. Office space is going at bargain rates at the moment. It's manned 24 hours a day, and if a high-powered, business-like campaign machine is what wins elections, then the Libs have got this one in the bag. A battery of 4 telex machines keeps national headquarters in contact with the state branches. Within minutes of a Liberal spokesman making a statement anywhere in Australia, the statement is reproduced on the headquarters telex.
Today we'll be really shaping up the kind of input we're going to get throughout the campaign.
Campaign director is Tony Eggleton, former ABC journalist, former director of Navy Public Relations, former press secretary to Sir Robert Menzies, John Gorton and Bill McMahon. He wasn't here for the May 74 elections, but a lot of Libs seem to think that if he had been, things would have gone differently.
Trevor, Bob here.
National Communications Director is Bob Badino. After 15 years in the Canberra Press Gallery, almost all of them for the Packer newspaper empire, Badino is a committed Liberal with a shrewd knowledge of the media. Badino and Eggleton, together with the advertising agency Mazias Wynne Williams, are the masterminds behind newspaper ads like this one.
Do you feel that you're consciously manipulating the public, creating an image about the Liberal Party and about its leader for electoral advantage?
No, I don't. In fact, I think that I don't really believe you can do that in politics. I think what you have to do really is to spell out what you stand for. The people make their own decisions. There's no point in trying to wrap things up in fancy packages.
We'll work this up. The theme is confidence.
Right.
And the country needs it.
Yeah.
You can't see it, but once it disappears, you know it's gone.
Yeah.
Well, take one. And action.
Confidence is the great unseen that enables free enterprise to operate, that enables people to invest, to build, to create, to fashion, to do things. And without confidence, of course, the whole of our free enterprise system in Australia will come to a stop.
I think the idea is just to mention a number of specifics.
One, take 2.
Confidence is the great unseen that enables free enterprise to operate. Without confidence, business comes to a halt.
Yes, but you can be a little bit
more
specifics.
Yeah. But, not overdoing it.
2, take 2.
Camera, ready? And action.
Confidence is the great unseen that enables free enterprise to operate. It is an absolutely indispensable element for the successful operations of free enterprise in Australia. People need confidence if they're going to invest, to expand, to provide employment opportunities. Here in Australia in the last 3 years, business has almost come to a halt because confidence has been missing.
Right, terrific. It was over length, but that's okay.
End slide.
The important thing is to tell the story, get the message over, and I think this time we have a very straightforward message to put over. Good management, responsibility, honesty. I think these are messages which are clearly understood. It doesn't need any special packaging.
But if it was that simple, surely you wouldn't employ an advertising agency and you wouldn't go to the trouble you do to make it a good campaign.
Well, you employ an advertising agency because horses for courses. It's a very specialised field. We might have ideas of the story we want to tell, but you need professionals to help you tell it professionally. And, of course, it is important to put over our case. As I mentioned, over the past few weeks, things have become somewhat confused, and you need to spell it out very clearly and very concisely in terms which the people will fully understand.
How important is Mr. Fraser's image as such in the campaign?
I think these days the image of the party leader is important, but I don't know that this time that it's necessarily quite so important. I think that people have become a little nervous of glamour and of individual performance of the kind perhaps that Mr. Whitlam has been noted for. I think that the people of Australia are looking for a leader who is solid and reliable. It doesn't matter quite so much if he's not such a good actor.
You're most comfortable sitting that way. You better
Probably.
pull your trousers in a minute. Actually, you're probably better sitting, if that's comfortable, you're probably better sitting like that, I think.
What if he wants to cross his legs?
Well, we'll make sure the microphones are fixed.
You're going to be on a pretty tight shot, I imagine.
Is the seat all right? Because I know the one yesterday.
The important thing is that he can produce results for the country. And I think that, in my mind, one doesn't need to set out to create an image for a leader. By the time he's got to the leadership of his party, there's no point, in my mind, in trying to change images. It's a matter of presenting him as strongly and letting people understand him as those close to him understand him, the real person.
Raise our legs.
You have the upstage leg position enough.
Because your legs need a little room, don't they?
Well,
Yes,
there's
big legs.
there you go. Chop them off.
Yes, and if perhaps, having had these few minutes here as we're getting ready, perhaps if the Four Corners team could, in a moment, let us get on with this part of the exercise, and we'll be in business. Okay. Would you mind, fellas? Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much for that. It was in Adelaide at a lunchtime rally that the Fraser campaign finally got underway. Whatever South Australians think about Gough Whitlam, they like Labor Premier Don Dunstan, and the Libs know they'll have to work hard in this state. The theme of Fraser's speech in Adelaide has been repeated many times throughout the campaign. Honest, efficient government and a solution to Australia's record inflation and unemployment. It was a friendly crowd, and Fraser disregarded entirely a small group of hecklers who tried to make themselves heard over the Liberal cheers. Playing to the gallery is not one of Fraser's skills. He tends to stick closely to his written speech with only the occasional rhetorical flourish.
But how many people here want a change of government on December the 13th? How many people here want the Liberal Party to govern after December the 13th?
If it's Wednesday afternoon, it must be Adelaide. With trips to sometimes 3 capital cities in the one day, travelling with the Fraser campaign party can be an exhausting experience. But despite his early sickness, Fraser seems to be bearing up to the pace extremely well. The plane is a BAC 111, one of the Air Force VIP jets. It's exactly the same as the one used by Gough Whitlam,
But there, the similarity ends.
It's worth noting that whether he did it directly, I don't know. Let me ask
The front compartment is reserved for Malcolm and Tamara Fraser and senior campaign officials. Fraser uses his time on the plane to work on his next speech or to plan the campaign. Occasionally, journalists are allowed into the inner sanctum for an interview, but only rarely does Fraser mix it with the boys down the back. It's a stylish way to travel. The meals are vastly superior to Reg Ansets, and the Air Force stewards understand the special needs of journalists on the campaign trail. As rally succeeds rally, as press conference succeeds press conference, you begin to lose track of what the Odyssey is all about. But at least there's someone on board who claims he knows.
What do you see as your important goal in these days leading up to December the 13th? What are you trying to do on the hustings?
Really to have people understand the issues, because I want this to be an election about issues, about policies, about the kind of future they want in Australia for themselves and for their children. That's what it ought to be about.
Is your image important in this campaign, the way you look and appeal to people?
Well, I just look the way I am. I can't do much about that. You'd have to ask other people, I think, that question more than asking myself. But
do you think consciously about it yourself, whether you're well-groomed for a simple thing, whether you're smiling a lot, how you're going over with the public, like a performer?
No, I don't think of that sort of thing at all. If you say something that people happen to react to, if it makes them laugh, it's just there. It's something that just comes. I don't think you can force humor. Something suddenly comes into your mind. If it's a crowd, the crowd reacts.
Are you offered advice by your advisors on that sort of thing, on your image, what you should do and how you should look?
I don't know about specifically on my image. I'm certainly offered advice. Images are strange things.
Would that sort of advice, though, extend to what you wear and whether you smile or not, whether you make humour in your speeches?
Sometimes, but, the advice would go more of the kind, well, if the joke comes naturally, it comes naturally. There's nothing fatter than a joke that doesn't work. And I think that's a silly thing for people to try and do. I would have thought the most important thing is for a person to be natural, to be himself.
How swayed are people by the images of the two leaders, by yourself and Mr. Whitlam? Do they judge it on images a lot, do you think?
Well, if I had a criticism of the media, it's that I sometimes think they tend to make it into a gladiatorial contest. And maybe this can't be helped. The two leaders or the three leaders are the people who get most television, most coverage, most news. What they say gets much more publicity. But people, I would have hoped, would make up their minds on the basis of policies, attitudes, ideas, the sort of Australia they want. That ought to be much more important. You could have a leader with a tremendous personality, but with quite terrible policies.
How do you think Mr. Whitlam goes in the personality stakes? Just looking at purely from personalities, how do you think he goes?
I don't want to make any comment about him. He's, obviously he's a formidable campaigner. That's been proved. But it's, if I may say so, a good team organisation, as we had in Bass, and I'm emphasising that it's a team organisation with the candidate, the local organisation, and the federal organisation thrown behind, and the politicians all in behind, showed that it could beat Mr. Whitlam and beat him pretty resoundingly.
Well, I think that he's inclined to be a rather reserved man, and this is a very natural and human thing, but it does mean that people sometimes get the wrong impression about Mr. Fraser.
Aloof, perhaps?
Well, they might. Those of us who know him know it's not true. But
patrician?
Well, I think that he is reserved, and in compared with many other people, it's a matter of comparison. But so I think the important thing that if we're doing anything in terms of image, and I play down that word, but I'm saying we really want people to get to know him rather better.
I'll no doubt get a very partisan answer, but what do you think your opponents are doing? How are they measuring up to you in the advertising war?
Well, let me say I have a great respect for my opponents. I never underestimate them. I'd have to say, though, that certainly being somewhat subjective, that I haven't been as impressed with their advertising this time. They had a reputation in the past for good advertising, but it hasn't emerged so far, but it still might. I'm not going to underestimate them.
Could it be simply a factor of money? You seem to be outspending them substantially, both in television and in the press.
No, well, I think the main impact from our advertising has really been the nature of it, rather than the extent. In fact, I think that it's sticking in people's minds, our advertising, and we may well be ahead of our opponents at this stage in advertising.
That's evading it a bit, isn't it? Surely you are well ahead in terms of money.
I don't know what money our opponents have. They say that they're getting a lot of money this campaign, that it's pouring in and so forth.
But in the way it's showing up on the air and in the papers, you're well ahead, aren't you, just in sheer space?
At this stage, it would seem that we're spending somewhat more, although in radio, for instance, I believe we're spending less. I think that our opponents have been doing more on radio than we have.
In the past, you've always answered the question I'm about to ask with the response that it's just ordinary supporters of the Liberal Party who give most of the funds. Can you say, though, categorically that it's not big business that supplies a fair amount of the funds for the Liberal Party?
Our fundraising has diversified a great deal in recent times, and we're doing this quite deliberately to broaden the base of our support. And, of course, there are big businesses which support us, the corporate organisations, but equally we depend a great deal on the ordinary party supporter and the small businessman and the ordinary person. Again, as the Labour Party have said, they've had a lot of support in my office. We've had cheques coming across my desk day after day, ranging from $1 or $2 through to thousands of dollars from just ordinary people or small businessmen who want to make their contribution to getting rid of the Labour government.
By far the biggest audience for Fraser on the campaign trail was the nationally televised policy speech from Dallas Brooks Hall in Melbourne. While Labor supporters battered on the doors outside, the audience inside consisted of ticket-holding Liberals who'd filled the hall hours before Fraser's arrival. The Libs weren't taking any risks that a few hecklers might put their leader off his stroke. It must have been a tense time for Fraser. Behind him on the platform, senior Liberal officials watched their leader make his first policy speech. In front of him, a television audience of millions learned that the Libs were proposing a big boost to private businesses, a cut in taxes, and an end to government excesses and extravagances.
We will change the tax rules which operate unfairly against small businesses and private companies. These measures will provide the basis for the next budget. Unless these reforms are made, private enterprise will not survive. A responsible government that understands and can manage the Australian economy is essential to Australian prosperity, to the revival of business confidence, and to the well-being and prosperity of every Australian.
The constitutional issue of Gough Whitlam's dismissal was, for Fraser, clearly not worth bothering about. Next morning, the newspapers liked the policy speech. A blueprint for recovery, a coherent economic package, a comprehensive strategy to restore our lost prosperity were just some of the editorial writers' comments. Alone among the major East Coast dailies, the Canberra Times thought the Liberal policy speech inconsistent and contradictory. The Times criticised the speech in particular for its lack of specific details about how government expenditure would be cut.
It's not possible to say in detail where economies and restraint can be made in the short term. With a budget of over $20,000 million, it's obvious that improvements in management efficiency can result in the savings of many millions of dollars.
The issue of how the Liberals would cut government expenditure boiled up the next day at a journalist club lunch in Sydney. Fraser repeated his theme of the night before that under the Liberals, government extravagances would be checked. Surely, some journalists thought, this would mean cutbacks in health, education and welfare projects.
In your policy speech last night, you said that spending on essential education, health and welfare programs would be protected against inflation. I was wondering if you could tell us how you define essential and if you could be precise about it.
I'd prefer to rely on the advice we'll get from educational experts on that particular matter. And we'll be getting advice from departments and educational experts rather than taking my own particular judgment.
And I think one of the irritations of this campaign is that we're not really being told that much, so naturally we're anxious to find out. And I think that really the gallery this time is really doing its job. It's trying to find out what Mr. Fraser is offering the people. We're not having that much success. And naturally, we're probably being cast in a role of being biased, but I don't think so. I think we're really trying to find out.
I think it has to be pointed out that Mr. Fraser almost is rather withdrawn from the press. He's not willing to mix freely with them. Certainly on the planes we're travelling around Australia, he doesn't mix freely, he doesn't socialise as Mr. Snedden did, and certainly as Mr. Whitlam does. And that area of disdain, that being withdrawn from the press, doesn't help matters at all.
Well, of course, he's not as spectacular as Mr. Whitlam. He doesn't campaign in the same sort of style. But at the moment, he does have, or public opinion polls seem to be going his way. He's performing quite confidently. I think he's saying what people want to hear, but as yet he hasn't been tested. He hasn't really gone to a political meeting as we know them. He hasn't got into it. He hasn't been tested by Labor supporters. He's had a pretty easy run so far. So I'd like to withhold judgment until we actually see him in a true political meeting.
Paul, what do you think of what you've seen of him so far on the hustings?
Well, I think Mr. Fraser's learnt a lot from the mistakes Mr. Snedden made in the May 1974 election campaign, when during the last fortnight of the campaign, Mr. Snedden made 3 or 4 major mistakes. And I think the reasons he made those mistakes was he went into too much detail on economic policy. And I think Mr. Fraser's learnt from the mistakes Mr. Snedden made, and I think his tactics are quite different. I think the Liberals at the present time have a fairly similar policy to that which Mr. Snedden put forward last time, but the difference now is that Mr. Fraser, certainly to this stage, is not going to make the same mistakes Mr. Snedden made, because he will not be drawn out on detail, particularly details relating to reductions in the overall level of government spending.
Is he getting advice, do you think, on that?
Yes, I think one significant factor here could be John
The advice he's getting is make sure you don't get stuck on detail.
It is true that Mr. Fraser certainly remains more aloof from the press, and this was shown today when asked whether or not he'd hold regular press conferences in Canberra if he became elected Prime Minister. He would not answer the question.
I think to a certain extent Paul's probably hedging a bit. Most of us would have a great deal of respect for Mr. Fraser as a politician, and not many of us would like him at all.
The reception that normally sedate and reserved Liberal audiences are giving Fraser is a new development in Australian election campaigns. In the past, the noise and the cheers were Labor's monopoly. These days, anything Labor can do, the Libs can do louder. Migrants, especially those from communist countries, have attended Fraser's rallies in significant numbers. When Fraser says that the choice on December the 13th is between socialism and freedom, it seems that many of them are seeing Australian politics from their own historical viewpoint. Throughout the campaign, Fraser has kept to a simple policy message. Labor's socialist policies haven't worked, the Libs will give free enterprise a chance. It might be a bit short on details, but if the polls are any guide, it's what many Australian voters will go for on December the 13th.